guys, what's going on? You are listening to The Prototype, only on ThisWeekInGeek.net. I am your host, Mike the Birdman, but I'm not alone as I board this helicarrier. That's right, we are Avengers, folks. I am joined by the man in Kitchener himself.
I was going to say the Blob, but no, that's he's not in the game.
And nothing hurts the Blob either.
Nothing. Or nothing can kill the Grimace either, right?
This is true.
Alex, the producer.
That's right, guys. So we are going to be doing a very special prototype where we dedicate an entire episode. We're not sure how long it's going to be. It's however long I feel like talking about this thing with Alex. We're going to be talking about Square Enix and Crystal Dynamics Avengers. And there's a lot of development teams involved on this. You've all heard the drama, as I'm sure you have, over the many years of development for this game.
Not to mention, every time you boot the game up, it slaps a screen in your face for 10, 15 seconds where you have to read all of the teams that were involved in it.
Yes. So before we go any further, we do have to disclose that a review copy of this was provided to us on Stadia. However, I bought this game on PlayStation 4, and I've been playing on a stock PlayStation 4 during my experiences. So that will give you
potentially, at least from what Digital Foundry and all the other analyst sites are saying, the second worst way to play it.
Although I didn't experience a lot of those big problems until last night.
The biggest problems that were related to performance were on the original Xbox One, like the VCR style one, where it was noticeable. Like you could see it in all the trailers and people's footage. PS4 seemed to fare a little better, probably because of the faster RAM.
So let's talk about the experience overall before we get into the kind of nitty gritty of this. Okay, so I'm coming at this game as a massive Marvel fan. I've been a fan of the MCU for years, ever since the first Iron Man back in 2008. And I've been looking for that ideal Marvel game ever since. Yes, we've had Marvel Ultimate Alliance. We had Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 on the Switch like last year or the year before last.
Yeah, it was the previous summer.
So that I didn't like at all. And I've been looking...
Which it's funny because I liked it as a game better than this.
Yeah.
Overall. You know what it might be? It's just that I think like this game, before we get into the nitty gritty, is it feels like it wants to be Ultimate Alliance, but then it isn't. So I feel like maybe there's part of my brain disconnecting from it.
I think the fact that I like in this game, you can control third person, one Avenger with AI companions. However, you can play with friends. But I wanted a third person action game that gave me options. And here you can play as Miss Marvel, the Hulk, Captain America, Iron Man, Black Widow, and Thor. I primarily played as Black Widow. I only played as the other characters when I was forced to during the campaign, with the exception of Iron Man. I did spend a little bit of time leveling him up. So during my playtime, the campaign took me less than 10 hours to beat, and it is arguably the best part of the game. It centers around Kamala Khan, who's a young Muslim girl who goes to visit the Avengers on A-Day, where they're showing off this new thing called the Terrigen reactor. So you can see there's the whole Inhumans connection there with the Terrigen mists and everything. So basically a way to make mutants, but not mutants.
And that trails back to this game being in development for the better part of a decade before they had the rights to use the word mutant.
Yeah, like you can tell they want to distinguish this, and Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix have said this is their own interpretation of Marvel. So it's not MCU, it's not Earth 616, it's its own thing, and it kind of works. So they do that, and then obviously shit goes to hell, the helicarrier crashes, Cap is dead, blah, blah, blah. The storyline as it unfolds in the game is actually really, really good. The girl who plays Kamala Khan is a wonderful central protagonist. Every other voice actor in the game, Troy Baker plays Bruce Banner. He's a wonderful Hulk. They got Nolan North, who's everybody plus Deadpool as Iron Man, and he does a passable, not quite Robert Downey Jr., but
I would say that the more famous voice actors and actresses in this come across as the weakest. I don't know if it's an issue with when they recorded their audio, but they're not as inspired as I was hoping they were going to be. Kamala Khan is, though, definitely.
Yeah, she's the best. In her and Troy Baker are the best.
Yes,
Nolan
yes.
North is probably the third. Laura Bailey, who plays Black Widow, I don't know whether it was her or the voice direction she was given. It just sounds bored. But
and it doesn't quite match the character.
Yeah, like I expect, but then again, I'm also basing my version of Black Widow off of what's her face? The name's going to bother me now. She's the MCU actress.
I'm purposely not going to tell you.
That's okay, whatever. I don't care. But yeah, like it's not quite as nuanced as her in the early movies because she did get weaker later on, but I don't know. Point of the matter is
Charlton's great too.
Yeah. MODOK is a great villain. Love MODOK.
Oh, surprise, it's MODOK.
Yeah, like we all knew it was going to be in the trailers because it's AIM, Advanced Idea Mechanics. But the other villains you fight are Taskmaster and Abomination. So cool. I love Taskmaster. He's a very cool villain, always has been, and very underutilized. I'm glad they brought him in as the villain for Black Widow, the movie, but we'll see how that all turns out. Plus Abomination, we saw in the Incredible Hulk. He's been one of the Hulk's main villains since like the 70s, I think. So cool.
I always remember him, interestingly enough, as Tim Roth's character, like because I actually like the
Hulk movie.
Yeah, I'm one of the guys that actually liked the ending and liked it. And plus, I mean, Tim Roth's a great actor. Like, I was surprised that he would play a supervillain like that. But yeah, so that's who I picture in my head. So it's always, that's my gold standard.
Yeah, but overall through the gameplay, you go and do a bunch of missions. Like you might be like, here, go to an AIM base, secure this, or rescue these Inhumans, but you have to reassemble the Avengers first. The campaign missions are almost all of them are okay, if a little bland. There's one cool mission where you take on Iron Man's suit and you build it to fly to space, but you have to go to Hank Pym's old lab and steal some Pym particles. And they never quite explain why you need Pym particles. If you're a Marvel nerd, you're probably asking yourself the same questions. And I'm not going to explain it to Alex because I could get into that for like 10 minutes.
They need a MacGuffin for certain things.
Yeah, they need tech because Hank Pym. However, though, one thing I really did like about this, and it's such a throwaway line, but I loved it. So AIM has taken over the US more or less since the Avengers were disbanded. And because AIM is in such a high position, they've neutralized certain superheroes. And Hank Pym, Ant-Man, has the ability through the Pym particles to shrink or grow. It's said that the head of AIM, Monica something or other, has manipulated Hank's DNA where if he grows or shrinks again, he dies. And I'm thinking that's a very cool way to take out a mainline character, still have it fit within the story's narrative. Okay, you know what? Totally fine with that. The rest of the story is big surprise. Certain things happen. Certain people are back. If you've watched the trailers, it's not hard to guess. And then eventually you fight MODOK and what is a discount version of a Sentinel, but it's not. It's a Kree Sentry. Still looks cool. Doesn't really do. You don't fight it directly, but you fight MODOK, which is all right. Okay, so let's talk about Alex's. What were your initial thoughts, and then we'll break this thing down piece by piece.
It was a little better than the demo I played. Remember, we played the beta ahead of time, but. The two things I want to get the negatives out first because I don't want to seem overly critical of it because there's just a couple small things that maybe small to other people but just felt weird to me. One was there's something off about the way that the characters feel layered into the world. It's some more than others in that it feels like certain characters have the wrong gravity or weight about them. Like Hulk is fine, but some of the flying characters feel weird when they're walking. There's just something with the gravity physics of it seemed a little off to me, and it pulled me out of the game a little bit. Sorry, and number two is this game can suffer from camera problems pretty harsh. If you bump into a wall, the camera will reset so that you're facing wherever you hit, and sometimes if you're going to jump, like you're running to a jump, you'll have to actually move the your analog stick to aim the camera where you want to jump, because it'll just decide that that's not the most cinematic in quotes angle for the jump to happen at. So it can throw you off a little bit. It's little touches like that they didn't need to really do, that harken back to the days of 10, 12, 15 years ago, probably when they started developing it, that are sort of gone. And I feel like maybe it's me being a little harsh comparing it to something like a Spider-Man, where we're used to that style now, so maybe that's what it is. But other than that, the gameplay is pretty solid. There's a little bit of
I find the gameplay changes vastly depending on who you played as. I know you and I had a conversation. You didn't like Iron Man as a character.
Hated anybody that flew.
I got used to him, not because I played Anthem, but because I'm used to thinking, I don't know, it's weird. This is how I described it to you. I think very Twitch gamer, so I'm used to thinking super fast on my feet.
Well, I can play fast games. Like I'm used to doing playing platinum action games and that sort of thing. It was
he was clumsy at first.
It was some of the physics of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it felt like you'd have to maybe go into your control settings and to either tune down or tune up the sensitivity of either the camera movement or how fast, because it felt like sometimes you were either, when you're changing direction up or down, left or right, when you're in flight mode, sometimes it either felt like you're having to take such a longer turn than you should, or too short. So sometimes there was a bit of an imbalance there. It was a lot easier with Hulk. Hulk seemed to be the best weighted character in quotes, like as far as how he felt moving in the world.
I think for me,
and Kamala yes. Is the most balanced for sure. And then early on, but I would say Black Widow handles well, but
I like her because I can play her like I play Batman. I get in, I get out, combos, plus I'm a ranged combat monster.
If you're really good at, running in, shooting, and then doing a lot of dodging, you can use her. I would say it's probably purposeful. Kamala is the best balanced.
Yes, because I feel by playing as her, she's the one they spent the most development time, because she is meant to be the showcase character.
Well, even her model, like her character model, seems to be a little more detailed than the rest of them.
Yes, I completely agree with that. I think the models that look the best in this are Kamala's, Tony's, and probably the Hulk. Black Widow floats between looking really good and weird at times. And Captain America, it depends.
Some of these characters look like they're straight out of a late gen PS3 game.
Like Thor, I think, has a problem too. Like there's just sometimes he looks off, and I don't know how to put it into words.
The hair is almost PlayStation 2 levels of detail. And here's the thing, it's not a problem with how we were playing it. Maybe you might have had some resolution scaling issues because you're playing it on the PS4 original, where it would be probably scaling down to 540p, I think, at some points in the game to maintain frame rate. Playing it, at least, because I played the demo or the beta right on PS4 Pro, and then comparing that to playing it on Stadia. Stadia, for most of the platform-based games that I played on there, have been pretty smooth. This is a game where it might be a problem with the engine, but you have to turn it on to the what do they call it? I guess their high frame rate mode, which I guess is more aggressive with the dynamic scaling. Because if you leave it on high resolution, it will drop to like 20 frames a second. And this is on the streaming platform, and I've got a fast internet connection, and I've heard that it's not an issue with Stadia per se. It's an issue with some of the scaling and some of the settings they have, even in the PC version, which is what this is obviously based on. So it's the kind of stuff that can be easily patched out. So it's not a problem with the game. Like, it's not a problem with the service, but it was buttery smooth putting it into like frame rate mode, and it was quite clear and everything. But there are some weird texture issues here and there. A lot of time, like Black Widow's hair and Thor's hair look like a flat bird's nest.
They look the best in the loading screens and in cinematics. However, that's something else with like cinematics. Certain ones seem to be pre-chosen, although you can change your cosmetics in between.
Yeah.
Sometimes I was forced into a certain outfit, and I'm okay with that now and again.
I was not. Like, I got, for getting, like, what I was sent for review included the deluxe edition, so it had the extra bonuses that were part of the pre-order bonuses with it, and it came with, you know, a set of epics for everybody. And I noticed that equipping the epic to them before I would trigger certain events, they would be talking about some costume that they're wearing, and it's not the same costume I'm wearing.
Yeah, like, I don't expect them to change dialogue for that, because
No, but it would have been nice that for the scene they switch them into the costume they're supposed to be in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I read
Because
you.
a couple of them are important to the actual story. For instance, once I got Tony, I immediately switched him to his epic costume. Well, in doing so, I didn't understand some of the dialogue where he's supposed to be running around with basically an empty suit on, right?
Yeah, he's supposed to be collecting pieces so we can build one.
Yeah, I already had a full suit.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, there was a bit of a disconnect from the storytelling perspective. And with Kamala, I equipped her epic one that I was given, and I completely, you know, the entire scene of her with her, I think it's called a burkini.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made no sense to me, because I was like, I don't see what I had to go into the menu to find the costume that had just unlocked. Like, it was supposed to switch you to that costume for that scene, and then you'd have it in your unlocked list.
Mm-hmm.
But if you select anything but the default, it won't do that for you automatically. So little things they can fix here and there with patch.
So what do you, now, before we get into the nitty gritty of this, because we've already kind of talked around it, what would you say you're, in a very short, succinct 140 characters or less,
Okay,
how would you sum up this game experience for you?
For me personally, or how I would say I think the general public will like?
You.
Me personally, I don't do a lot of like ratings out of 10. It's a 6.5 to 7 out of 10. It's less than it should have been, but has tons of potential because this is supposed to be a living world. It can get better and better. On the platform I was given, it works fine if you put it into the right mode, and it works just as well as, probably better than my PC could handle, which is good. Music is good in it overall. Visuals, it has decent HDR. Controls on certain characters are good. It's sort of where I would expect a game that maybe came out a little too early. Similar to, remember how Destiny was when it first came out?
Yeah, like, because, for example, I was a pretty big Destiny player in the first year and a half of that game, and Destiny got good after the Taken King expansion, which was, I think, the second one or first one. I don't know. But
yeah,
after one of the expansions, the loot improved, the economy improved, and a lot of quality of life improvements were made.
Yeah, I say this is a solid game. It has its core. It has its good moments. I wasn't a fan of the VR missions. Some of them are a little bit busybody, clearly to grind to get more stuff. The only other thing that I do not care for is the cosmetic shop.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's for the most part, it's, you can bypass it. You don't need it. But it's kind of aggressively bad when it comes to how much real world money they're expecting to get for some of these things.
Yeah, and that's going to bring me to a major point. Let's dig right into the review, because I want to talk about this point right now while I'm thinking about it. Okay, so Alex had gotten the digital collector's edition on Stadia.
Yeah.
I bought the digital deluxe edition on PlayStation 4. What that entails, at least on my end, you got your epic costumes based upon whatever, and I got 1,000 credits to spend in game to buy a costume.
I was supposed to get that. I got one.
Yeah, so that's the problem with your Square Enix account.
It's not with Square Enix. It's whatever activated on Stadia. So it's the kind of thing where it might just magically pop up. But I did notice it, like
it is a known issue, because I read the game subreddit.
Because when you activate the game, it pops up saying what you get, and it had your 10,000, and then it said, I clicked OK, and it added one.
Yeah, so with these 1,000 credits that you get with each edition of the game, that is not enough to buy one of the legendary outfits, and that to me is horseshit.
It should be enough to get one thing at least of your choice.
Well, it is and it isn't. So to break it down, most of the legendary costumes cost about 1,400 credits. You are given 1,000. You can buy credits in bundles of 500, 2,000, 10,000 and 50,000. So that so it goes from $5 to $7, I think, $26 and up. So
Yeah.
I spent.
They are, in my mind, completely optional. So
oh yes,
that argument of, you know, somebody saying, well, then just don't buy it. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, it's true.
But for those people that do want it, it does feel like they're trying to milk it a fair bit.
Yeah, because now that's also something else to talk about, but I'm going to finish this thought first.
Sure.
So I did spend $5 to get some more credits, and I bought Black Widow's Saboteur outfit, which looks like her appearance in Iron Man 2. So she's got the shield outfit. And then I spent a couple hundred last credits, not on an emote, which they are ludicrously overpriced. I bought a uncommon nameplate for Black Widow where she's holding a kind of sniper rifle. The game's economy, this I've got to talk about extensively.
Well, so, and right before you do that, emotes, it does feel like they're trying to make almost like Fortnite, you know what I mean, like the feel they're trying to build that sort of community. I truly don't think there's going to be that many people that buy the emotes.
I can't see
in the first place.
Well, if you use them, you're leaving yourself open to attack. There's not much time to use them.
It some of these features feel like it's like, let's check the checkbox of everything we're supposed to have in a live service game. Whereas what they should be thinking is, does it make sense for this game?
See, if they dropped emote prices to where it was maybe, I'm gonna catch heat for this, so I'm just gonna come out and say it. If you drop them to 500 credits rather than 1,000 to 1,200 credits, you're out of your fucking mind. If I'm paying $7 for Cap to spin his shield on his fingers.
Do you know what they should be doing? And this is one thing I'll say, because you're more into this game than I was. I enjoyed my time with it. But I do think I noticed little things that I honestly think will easily be fixed in patches.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, this isn't a thing of, oh, the game was incomplete when it came out, because this is a living game. So it makes sense that, you know, they shipped something that worked fine. And it's clear that Crystal Dynamics needed a lot of help getting what they had been working on for years finished. So they went to Eidos Montreal, known for their RPGs, to, you know, basically ship a finished game. And then now they're in the mode of, let's do major patches. Probably they haven't released a timeline yet, but I'm expecting probably once a month there's going to be a major patch or two to fix things out. Well, especially before the next gen comes.
As of this recording, there's supposed to be a major patch coming out. I think it's patch 1.30 is coming. Like I said, I spend a lot of time in this game's kind of subreddit.
Oh yeah, and the final thing I was going to say with that as well is, I would love if the comic books that you collect in there weren't just the covers to unlock. You know, you collect a certain amount, it'll give you a little stat boost. It would be nice if you could actually read them, or you get your points and all this sort of stuff, or you buy points. Why not have it so that it has digital e-readers in there that you can read the books? Like, pay, if it was 1,000 points to get one of your favorite issues that you could read in game as sort of like a pseudo game within a game thing, that would be really cool. So those are things that people would be willing to pay a few bucks for.
See, in my opinion, with that, I'm okay with not being able to read the full comic book, but I should be able to have that page blown up a lot more than the size of like a piece of pizza or something. They're just not big enough to make out some of those like kind of details, because some of those classic covers from the 1960s are absolutely wonderful. I'm a big fan of the Black kind of Widow stuff, and there's one comic from the Hulk series of collectibles where you can't make out a shit ton of detail because it is fairly small. And I'm running on a 4K HDR TV, and it's not, I mean, I can see it fine, but it's not.
Well, you're playing it at 1080p because you're on a regular PS4, but it still should be legible.
Yeah, well, I expect more from it. But going back to the game's economy, buying uncommon and rare and legendary nameplates, that has got to change. Like, some of these prices are not nice because you're basically paying $1 for a nameplate. And yes, you can make the comparison to COD in buying calling cards and skins, but they don't seem as, and I don't want to say the word predatory, but they're not as balanced as they should be, because there's this thing in Fortnite, for example, where if you get seen with a default skin. They call you a bot, and I wonder if there's going to be the whole sense of FOMO here if you don't have certain things for your character, certain skins. And there's also a battle pass which you can pay real money to skip through. It just gives you extra resources, other costumes, nameplates, stuff like that. Nothing that is pay to win directly, but some of those things that you buy, or sorry, some of those things that you can earn, which can be done by doing in-game challenges and everything, but you have to visit vendors. I'll talk about that in a minute. Just the in-game economy needs work. And I think, honestly, that as a sign of goodwill towards the community, they should give out something for free, because there's been a lot of problems, in my opinion, with this.
That may happen as we get close to new console launches.
I hope so.
Because there's going to be obviously new revisions for that. The other thing is they have to do something about the micromanagement of all your gear.
Yes, the fact that a lot of this game, as we discussed, is built like Destiny. For example, you got stuff that helps work on your melee attack. You got stuff for range, stuff for defense, and stuff that provides some kind of a passive bonus or adds an effect to something. And they don't really explain what everything does. Like, there's plasma, cryo, PIM, and gamma. I will tell you right now, if you get the option to use PIM, or if you get the option to use particle or plasma, take those, because plasma does damage over time. PIM reduces an enemy in size, so it's really funny seeing really tiny enemies walking around and you're doing ludicrous amounts of damage to them. Plus, it's the status effect that takes the longest to wear off. So you can wreck people in this game with it, but I'm getting aside of that. And you're constantly going into the menu, equipping newer pieces of gear to get a higher gear score. And that's what determines how the game drops you loot. The higher your power score, it's not your level, it's your power score, determines what drops. So you may have a really awesome piece of gear that's at a lower level, but you may have to take a piece of shit gear that's at a higher level for a chance to get stuff. And this is something that's being addressed in the community right now, is loot drops are happening from missions are not dropping what they should. Like for certain villain sectors where you fight the Abomination and Taskmaster. By the way, there's only 2 super villains in this fucking game.
You know what? Let's just say it now. 7 to 8 years of development hell and COVID.
Yeah.
That being said, what they shipped was actually better. I wasn't going in skeptical. I went in figuring, there's going to be work that needs to be done, and there's less work that needs to be done than I expected. I
see this game working over time, but the thing is, the community needs to stay with it. But continuing my thought there, there just needs to be some adjustments to how quickly that happens. Loot drops need to be managed a little bit quicker, or quit giving me green shit all the time, because I feel like you should be getting less green shit the higher levels you get. Like when I finished the game and I got into the post stuff, I was level 32 with a power level of 90. So I'm not max level and I'm not max gear level yet. That level cap is expected to rise along with gear scores, and you can only improve certain gear with certain late game modules too. And that's another thing too, to go back to the game's economy. The game's in-game economy is a fucking mess, because to upgrade your gear, you require different types of materials. I still can't tell you what it does. I just have to look at the colors. That's how I've been doing it. And then certain things can only be improved with certain rare things. So it's annoying as piss to deal with it. I just wish they could simplify it somehow. It feels like you also don't get anything cosmetic from, let's say you get Thor's grip of Fenris, or so. I'm just making that up. Yeah. Or you get Cap's helm of protection. it doesn't do anything to your character. It just gives you a better number somewhere on a screen. Visually, it does nothing.
Because costumes are separated and costumes have to be bought.
Yeah, that's annoying as hell, because I've got some really cool looking gauntlets. I had these for Black Widow, and they were Red Room gauntlets. If you're a fan of the comics, the Red Room is where Black Widow was trained. This should look cool, and there is artwork in the game that shows the gauntlets. Instead, no, they're not there. She's still got her shield outfit that I have her equipped with, or you get a certain vest that's supposed to look cool, or with Kamala, you get different bracelets and stuff. You don't see that. That sucks. Like, there's just so many little quality of life things that I would improve. Like, you need to spend a lot less time in menus. There is an option, but it's not explained to you. You have to find it. I think on PlayStation you hit L or R2 when you're on the gear selection screen, and it'll just auto equip the best piece of gear. But it's not the best piece of gear because you have to micromanage that shit.
Yeah, and again, like, I don't think we're being critical because I
want this game to be awesome. I want this to be my Destiny for the next couple of years. And they've said every hero and mission will be free from here on out. The game will be supported. I ask you this: will the community be here in 6 months?
I think it's going to depend on the next gen versions. People might have been waiting because it's so close to pick it up that way. As far as, like, if you're playing it on PC, you're getting already the next gen experience, and same goes for Stadia in that sense. I personally like it better than Destiny. I didn't like Destiny 2 when we played it.
I didn't like Destiny 2. I loved Destiny 1. The thing, I like Avengers, but I don't love it. And that's my problem. I feel like more effort was put into the campaign than anything else. Yeah. And the multiplayer was slapped on. I did not get a chance to experience much of the multiplayer. I just couldn't get people to connect to me when I was playing. Again, that may be a PlayStation 4 problem.
I did briefly for a couple times, actually. And it seemed to work just fine, but that's sort of expected. I was playing it on a massively cloud-connected system, right? So it works. It's not, it's not going to be the same kind of net code you expect from, like, a super efficient game.
It's not COD.
Yes, but
it's not Destiny.
Yeah, and it's not Fortnite, right? So but it was competent. It worked. I feel that right now we're sort of early adopters.
Yeah,
I feel like the game shouldn't have come out in September. It should have come out in November when the new systems are coming in.
Agreed. Like, I think they could have squashed a lot of these bugs and had I think the beta should have lasted a few weekends and taken things from the Play Avengers subreddit and listen to people. I had to read the subreddit multiple times to understand how certain things worked in the game. And yes, they do explain it during the virtual harm training room, but for Black Widow, because I played as her for 90% of the time that I could, I didn't understand how one of her abilities worked, that her intrinsic ability, where basically don't take damage. Eventually you'll start getting a damage buff, but the second you get hit, it goes away more or less. Plus, like I said, I was micromanaging buffs and stat debuffs and everything else. So
it's the kind of game that it's easy to pick up and then it takes a while to master.
Yes, that the game does have depth if you're willing to learn it. If I did have to give some beginning advice to this game, obviously you're going to play through the campaign first, because you really can't play the multiplayer without doing that.
And a lot of the side missions you'll have to do, like, they'll pop up and you'll need a power level, and you'll need to do at least 2 to 3 more regular missions to get there.
Yeah, like, you're going to have to plan your way of attack. I would suggest when you play through the game the first time, find a hero that you like once all of them are unlocked, and just play with them and have fun. Now, at the end of the game, when you go to space, After that, you will be forced into using certain characters. You will get a prompt before that mission, before one of the last missions starts, that says you are beginning the final campaign mission. Do you want to proceed?
Which is very similar to how Spider-Man and a lot of more modern games do it. They will tell you, don't do this until you're realizing that you can't go back.
Yeah, and it's only in the regard, it's not that the fights are any tougher, because I was fighting certain enemies, whereas my Black Widow was level 90, everybody else was like level 20. So you're
like, get wrecked.
Yeah, it wasn't fun. But one thing I did know, I'm not sure whether this works properly, I'm not 100%, but because I played as Iron Man for a good chunk and I upgraded a good chunk of his skills, having him as one of my companions as Black Widow, he was using the abilities that I had unlocked for him. The other heroes were only using their basic sets. So the more those characters improve with you, the more options I guess they have.
It's not so much that they with you, it's they don't improve with you. You have to play as them, do all of their missions, level them up. So if you go into let's say you want to do a Hulk mission, let's say power level whatever 20.
Yeah.
And let's say your Hulk is power level 9. You'd be like, well, shoot, I can't do it unless you have, let's say, Iron Man's level 50. You can actually pick him as a companion.
Yes.
And it brings your overall power level up.
Yes.
And it will let you do it.
Yeah. That's how I've been doing it.
You'll have to hang back and let them. The AI is not bad. There's some issues normal glitches you see in AI, but that's how you can sort of power level some of the characters. If you're not going to be stuck in a situation where it's like, oh crap, I just can't do it. If you pick one character and mostly do them, it just means you'll have to backtrack and do some extra missions to really bring your gear level up by having a couple powerful companions with you.
Yeah. How I would say it is, you're going to have to replay a lot of things here. And that's the problem, is when you get to the end game in this, you're going to see a lot of the same bases. In fact, this pissed me off.
It's very Destiny that way.
This pissed me off in a way I cannot even begin to fucking describe. So I visited the Shield and I visited the Inhuman people, and they're like, hey, AIM has cloned Taskmaster. Okay, cool. I'll do a villain sector. All right, neat, whatever. So I kill him, come back, and for some reason Taskmaster is talking as if he's the real one. I don't know, but whatever. So I go visit the Anthill and I get a mission from the Inhuman side. Oh, they've cloned Abomination. Okay, cool. Let's go kill the Abomination. And I go do his mission. It's the exact same layout to the base that I just fought Taskmaster at. Literally nothing different. Now, obviously, that's going to change with time, as they did with the Avengers War Table at the beginning of September. They said there is the new missions coming out for Kate Bishop Hawkeye and Clint Barton Hawkeye, which are both intertwined. One is a prologue that leads right into the next. I can't remember. Kate Bishop comes first, then Hawkeye, then Spider-Man presumably comes in, I think, January.
Which I sad face won't get.
I do think, looking at how the game plays from a mechanical standpoint, I think Spider-Man is going to play a lot like Black Widow, because Black Widow has a movement ability called the Widow's Line, which is basically like Spider-Man's webs. So
now,
maybe
you think he's going to play like that, but then fly through the sky?
I don't think he'll fly, but I think he'll have movement that's faster and more nuanced than Black Widow, where he can stick to the environment. That's going to be interesting to see how they implement that.
Maybe he'll punch as hard as the Hulk, but move as fast as her.
Yeah, so he's going to be a hit and run character with some punch behind him, but he won't be able to take a lot of damage. So that'll be my guess on how he'll plays.
He'll probably be able to bust open areas.
Yes, and whether he'll be able to hack doors because he's smart, I don't know. That's another thing too I like about this game and don't like. Certain characters can do certain things. Like, for example, Kamala and the Hulk can open doors that have cracks in them, whereas Iron Man and Black Widow can't. I didn't try it with Thor, because during the Thor part of the main campaign, you play with him twice. So whatever.
There is going to be backtracking, because you can't switch your playable character once you've started a mission.
Yes, that's annoying.
So you'll get in, you'll be like, well, I gotta fail the mission or beat it and then redo it because this person can't open that door to get that special. And you have no idea until you started who can open what.
Yeah, like you have to explore the missions, and you can find hidden shield vaults. I got lucky and found a couple of them really early on in the game, and it buffed my power level.
Me too. Now, but I also feel like this isn't an issue if you're playing with multiple people.
Yes, if this game would be wonderful if you get a good squad of people on mic talking and coordinating, especially when you're doing points where like, hey, go destroy this arc reactor, but it has 4 conveniently placed computer terminals, defend each for 30 seconds. Doing that as a single person, I jumped around like Spider-Man as Black Widow, and it was fun, if frustrating, but fun. So I guess let's begin to kind of close this out. Overall, I liked Marvel's The Avengers, but I didn't love it. There's a lot of problems here, but I think they can be patched if Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix listen to the community, take good critical feedback, and adjust more quality of life things. Because I think there's a lot of things that can be done here that can be fixed. The gameplay loop can be improved upon with post-game content, but as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong out there, people, there hasn't been a roadmap with a timeline that shows when stuff's coming out.
I feel like we won't know that till next gen.
Yeah.
But as far as for like reviewing it on the Stadia platform, it's solid, especially if you put it into frame rate mode. If I'm assuming patches will fix some other things to make the 4K mode, 4K high res mode, a little more stable. But that's sort of how it is on every platform right now. I would say in its current state, it's a 6.5 to 7 out of 10 for me. It has the potential to be about an 8.5. I can't see this magically being fixed and become a masterpiece, but I can see it being a solid A game. Like as far as like if you had like A, B, C, D, E, F, it's like an A. If you fix these things we've been talking about. Now, as far as, do I recommend picking it up right away, especially on Stadia? It's going to depend entirely. If you're somebody who can't or get or doesn't want a next-gen system, or doesn't have a high-end video card, can't afford to upgrade your computer, it's probably the most stable and best platform to play it on. Because you're not stuck using 7 or 8 year old tech like the PS4 and original Xbox One are. Or if you have an Xbox One X, it's probably comparable that way, back and forth. So if you're not planning on upgrading, don't. And if you are, you might want to pick it up, or wait until a version is released for those systems. I think the plan was to have them ready pretty much day one or within the first week or so of the launch.
I think they'll be done by Christmas at the latest.
Yeah, at the very latest, based on whatever it. Regardless, the experience is only going to get better as it goes.
Yeah, I mean, for me, as a person who bought this game and was not provided a review code, I'm glad I bought it, but not at the price that I paid for it. So
basically, you're saying maybe hold off to next gen?
I would say wait till next gen or wait till Black Friday. Guaranteed this will go down in price, which is good. Like I said, one of the things this game has going for it is it's supposed to have support for a long time. We're supposed to get both Hawkeyes and Spider-Man. I think Black Panther has been teased. So we're gonna get more with this game. And if this game does turn to as a game as a service like Destiny, if it's well supported, I think there's a lot of potential for fun here. I think the skeleton of something awesome is here, but it's not quite there yet.
It's there, it's skinny, it needs some more meat in the bones.
Yeah, like improve that gameplay loop, get me out of the same 3 friggin' aim labs, and I'll be happy. Give me more to do, give me more villains. The fact I want more. The Marvel universe has over 1,000 villains. We are fighting like 5 maybe, and 3 of them, MODOK, Abomination, and Taskmaster, are the named ones. I would take Paste Pot Pete at this point. And on that note, that's all I got to say about that. So, final things to say is maybe check it out on Stadia, might be your best option, or next gen. I'm saying if you really, really want this game, maybe see if there's a Black Friday sale. And yeah, so until next time, we shall assemble. So we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike, the Birdman, saying Avengers. Wait for Black Friday. We'll see you next time, right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net.
Well, that's our show. All right, here's the deal. Every time you watch my show, I will send you $40.
Checks will not be honored.
You've been listening to This Week in Geek, your source for guaranteed nonsense or your money back. Tune in next week for more info on the most important things you didn't need to know. Check out our website at ThisWeekInGeek.net and subscribe to our podcast through iTunes or any podcatcher. If you'd like to comment on this episode, head over to this episode's post at ThisWeekInGeek.net and leave a comment through Facebook Connect. Follow us on Twitter at ThisWeekInGeek.net and follow our Instagram at twig_official_podcast. Social media not your thing? Send us an email at feedback@ThisWeekInGeek.net. We'll see you next time, and remember,
lower your shields and surrender your listenership.
Just when you think this show is terrible, something wonderful happens.
What?
It ends.
I have to go. Somewhere there is a crime happening.